Sports parents, if you're looking for a program to help develop your student athlete, check out my course, The Edge, showing and helping the student athlete how to take effective action, developing discipline, showing them how to develop a growth mindset and expand their mind in the form of reflective thinking. This is the place you want to be. This is course. I want you to work through this course with your student athlete. It's not for them to go at it alone. This is a gap. This is a way to bridge the gap between the student athlete and sports parent and the student athlete and the coach. Check out my course, The Edge, at sportsmastery.thinkific.com. I'll also have a link in the show notes. And now, back to the show. In life, every great and extraordinary person has revealed that at some point they had a coach or an advisor helping to guide them along their path. And I quote, "We show people how to use their innate intelligence to take them to levels beyond their thoughts, hopes, and dreams." If you're listening to this, the big idea on today's show is RJ Hodges. Today, we're going to be discussing eliminating the hindrance of fear, increasing confidence and self-esteem, balancing personal and athletic life, getting rid of anger and emotional mood swings, and finally, getting your two O's together: order and organization. With further ado, I want to bring RJ Hodges onto the show. RJ, I know you're down there in Atlanta, man. Tell us what you're up to.
Man, right now I am in my office. It is a normal day for me. Monday is a day of coaching sessions and seeing clients, but I am excited to be taking a moment away from that to join you on your show, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. You know, this show came about in a very interesting way because I'm up here in Portland, Oregon. RJ is down there in Atlanta, Georgia, and his best friend was up here visiting. Unbeknownst to me, I'm talking to this gentleman, Tommy, while he's at the gym working with another coach, and I explained that I had a podcast. And then from there, Tommy told me that he knew some good people in Atlanta, and I told him that I listened to this brother in Atlanta on somebody else's podcast, and his name was RJ Hodges, and I was telling Tommy to check him out. And Tommy responded, "You know what, man? That's one of my longtime good friends. We grew up together. I know him personally." And this kind of spiraled from there as Tommy put us together, man. So I thought that was incredible.
Definitely. Like I said, everything always happens for a reason. So I'm glad that, Tom came in. You call him Tommy, I call him Tom because we go way back. But I'm glad you guys bumped into each other and your paths crossed. So now I'm here. So great way to be on the show.
Yes, I've actually met Tommy in Portland twice. You know, I came across you on John Lee Dumas's podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, man, and you really dropped a lot of nuggets on there. And then, I had the intention to reach out to you because I listened to that show about 5 or 6 times, and then getting a chance to meet Tommy, that's just put it over the top. I'm like, man, could you reach out to him? Maybe you could connect us and I could get that brother on the show. So, learning from what I read before, checking out your site, checking out your bio, listening to you numerous times on John Lee Dumas's show, I wanted to discuss, and I like one of your favorite words, hindrances. Let's discuss eliminating the hindrance of fear and your thoughts on that.
Fear is one of those things that I always tell people we have to work on because, let's start here. Let's give ourselves some kind of foundation. My definition of fear is that fear is a projected reality determined in your mind. And it's a result of one thing and one thing only, the abundance of negative information that you have on any subject. And, when I talk to people about that, I want people to understand where fear comes from because there is no such thing as fear, I should say, if you don't have an abundance of negative information on that subject. Give you a perfect example. You take 2 kids, you take a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. You tell the 2-year-old to go out in the yard and get that snake that's crawling around and bring it back to you. Chances are that 2-year-old will do it. Why? Because they don't know any of the information about snakes. But now that 6-year-old who's been on Google and who's talked to his aunts and talked to his cousins and talked to you and talked to everybody else, we've now told him snakes are dangerous, they're poisonous, they bite people, they harm people. So we've shaped his reality in his mind, and that abundance of negative information that he has now, it provides a fear. So we have to understand first and foremost what fear is and where it comes from. And once you get an abundance of negative information on any particular subject, what it does in your mind is it starts to get you to, watch this word, consider. It gets you to consider an alternative reality, something outside of what you don't want. And I know you said you work with a lot of athletes. So a lot of athletes may be, looking at things online, and maybe they're looking at certain players who didn't make it to the professional level. If you take in that information, it'll now start you in your mind to consider a reality that you may not make it to that professional level. That's fear.
You know what? I can appreciate your definition of fear and definitely the snake metaphor or the snake analogy. I have a workbook, and the first chapter in my workbook is centered around fear. I really love and appreciate that definition. Tell the audience your definition of fear one more time, RJ.
Fear is a projected reality determined in your mind as a result of an abundance of negative information that you have on any subject. So basically, when you take in information that's not in the direction that you want to go in on any particular subject, that information now starts to produce a fear in you. It aids your mentality in you telling yourself a story that you don't desire. Just think about that. That's what it does every single day for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this show, that's a high-powered definition. I encourage you to write it down, go back, play this again if you have to, because Mr. Hodges just said a lot in a short amount of time. This is a 5-star show. It's taken me a while to get this guy on the show. I know he's busy. I can really appreciate his time, and I really hope you do so, because this is going to be good right here. Let's discuss increasing confidence and self-esteem and your thoughts on that based on what you do right now as a motivator, public speaker, writer, and presenter.
Okay. Increasing confidence and self-esteem, I always say first and foremost, confidence is being able to rely on or have a really firm trust in a thing. And I always tell my clients, I tell everybody that there is no way you will have trust in anything that you don't spend quality time with. So if you want to have confidence in yourself, you got to start spending time loving on yourself and embracing the things that are great about you and embracing all of those things that may even be different about you. One of the things I thought about was if you're an athlete and you want confidence in your game or confidence in your athletic abilities, you got to spend time and develop the right relationship with your game. You got to spend time to develop the right relationship with athleticism. And you can't get caught up in comparing your gifts to other people's gifts, because that's going to decrease your confidence, because all of our gifts are different. So confidence is a trust in something. And that's the only way I became confident with me, whether it was speaking, whether it was coaching. I started spending time with me. I started looking at the gifts that I do have. I started looking at the things that I have, and it may be different from other people, but I got very comfortable with those. I'm from Atlanta. I have a Southern accent. Every now and again, you might get a finna or a fixin' out of me.
Right.
It's going to come out. But now, if I compare that to other speakers who don't say that, it doesn't make them less than or me less than them. It just means that we're different. I got to embrace what's me. Because something about my finna or my fixin' is going to touch a life, because they're going to be able to relate to it. So you have to spend some time with yourself. Start loving on yourself. Be very thankful and proud of who you are, no matter who you are or where you are or what you are right now, because that's the beauty of you. And if you do that and you do that consistently, you'll start to increase your confidence. And, just kind of jumping off of that and jumping to the whole self-esteem thing, you got to learn to value your own self-worth. You got to value your own self-worth. And like I said, you can't compare it, because somebody else might have different gifts. What I thought about, because I'm a huge sports fan, so what I thought about was two players that I love, Robert Horry and Michael Jordan. Two totally different types of players. But if they didn't have confidence in themselves, their careers wouldn't have turned out the way it did. You see, Michael Jordan is a face of a franchise type player. We've never bought Nike Air Oris. At least I haven't. If y'all did, let me know. Let me know what they look like. I might get a pair. But we've never bought Nike Air Oris. We bought Jordans. He was the face of the franchise. He was the go-to player. But Robert Horry has one more championship ring than Michael Jordan last time I checked. Robert Horry has 7 rings. I think Michael only has 6. But think about that. If Robert Horry had started looking and comparing himself to somebody else, he wouldn't have recognized his greatness, because I would argue to say that Robert Horry is probably one of the best clutch shooters that ever stepped into the league. And I'll argue with somebody about that. So by him spending time and nurturing and being very confident in his own abilities, it allowed him to still be a champion, just like Michael Jordan. So a lot of times our self-esteem, it comes from appreciating the gifts that we do have and not comparing them to gifts and worth that other people have.
You know, I like what you said about confidence, because it goes back to just, you have to do the work, whether it's on the field. You touched on that, but I'll talk about off the field, because I have a freshman athlete. He'll be a sophomore, and I'm expressing to his mother and him now that we want to be taking the pre-SAT and the pre-ACT next year. We want to do that twice. And then once you get to that junior year, I want you to take the SAT and the ACT twice if possible. So by the time you get to your senior year, you should do very, very well on that test. And you're, like you said, your confidence should be up. You shouldn't have any test taking anxiety. You shouldn't have any fear of taking these college entrance exams. You know what I mean? And on the other side of what you were talking about, you know, with self-esteem, I encounter kids. Sometimes they change positions. Sometimes they change schools. Sometimes they just outwork people, you know, to the point that they're an anomaly, you know, so they get a lot of flack behind that. But I'm like, you can't worry about what other people think, say, or might do concerning you. Just worry about yourself and you'll be okay. So I can really appreciate the things that you said about confidence and self-esteem.
You gotta have it. You know, you gotta have confidence. You gotta have self-esteem. But like I said before, and I agree with you 100%, it starts with just appreciating who you are. We're all great. You know, another person may be great in a different way, but that's their lane. Don't worry about that. Focus on your level of greatness, perfect that, be happy about that, and you'll have all the confidence in the world.
If you're here for the first time, go check out the Remix Pros. If you need custom t-shirts for your church, your fundraisers, any type of family event, this is the place to go. If you need custom t-shirts and you're trying to develop an apparel line for your team, business, or events, your schools, this is the place to go. Check out theremixpros.com. The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the parent to work through together. The Sports Mastery Workbook was created for the student athlete and the coach to work through together. It was created in a sense and in a way to bridge the gap in communication between these parties and build a successful relationship dynamic. To learn more, visit sportsmastery.com/workbook or check out the show notes page and click on the link.